Well, good day to you. It is, in fact, New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2020, and I hope everyone is having a great New Year's Eve, and I can't wait to see what 2021 comes about, and I hope 2021 is a great year for you and everybody else. If this is your first time ever listening to Search for Signs, my name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you. I want to thank you. And we have something unique going on here because we have over 300 videos where we talk about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. Through the course of these videos, we take a deeper look at who and what Maitreya is. We, of course, talk about what he is not, and we talk about the Masters and why are the Masters returning now to the everyday world, and what does it mean? We tie it into the current events of the time. We take a look at the political divisions, the social unrest, the economic uncertainty, the environmental problem, of course, and then things like the coronavirus which have cropped up over the last year. And for most of us who look at all this, all the problems, they just seem insurmountable. Therefore, there's no hope. Perhaps we're all going to die sooner or more, rather than later, right? Now, I want you to listen very carefully to this real quick, okay? Maybe it's not the end times. Maybe it's the beginning times. And maybe there's not only a future for humanity, there's quite a hopeful future for humanity. Now, why would I say something like this? Because along with all the problems that we are facing as a people together, right, there are all these miracle signs that have been happening for decades in all walks of life. Every religious group is having a miracle sign. So it's not just the Christians. So the Christians can't just say it's confirming their own beliefs. It's the Muslims are having their signs, the Hindus are having their signs, but also people of no faith are having miracle signs too. So what does it mean? Does it mean that the teacher who made a promise to every one of those religious groups and to the whole world to come back at some point is already here and has been living in a modern city for the last 40 years? In fact, speaking on TV to millions of people. So is that what it means? Now, if the teacher is already here, and if the teacher has already been speaking on TV, but yet not claiming to be the teacher come back, the Christ come back, the Imam Mahdi, even just the world teacher Maitreya, if he's just presenting himself as an ordinary person, then at this moment in time, it's not so important to really know and believe what Maitreya is or what we're saying he is. Maybe it's more important to look at his priorities and the problems of the world and the solutions to those problems, that kind of thing. So if you're somebody who's not really concerned about listening to a YouTube channel about the religious side of this information and what it means for the religious groups to have the Christ come back in a way that they're not expecting and so forth, that's okay. It's more important to really look at his priorities. Now, what is his priorities? Okay. Is it justice? Is it, political resolution? Is it more of an economic certainty for people? Is it, even fixing the environment? Are those the top priorities? Well, those are priorities, but they're not the top priority. Maitreya says that the top priority is peace. We must create peace. Our very survival depends on whether we do this or not. He puts it like this: without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. Without peace, there could be no future. Now, most of us know about justice. Most of us know about peace. If you're somebody who's concerned about the planet and people, perhaps you've already marched for justice. You've already marched for peace. Maybe you've marched for the environment and so forth. And that's great, right? That's what's needed. But we're missing the first step, sharing. And if you're living in a country like the United States, of course, you're probably more capitalist than socialist, right? Maybe perhaps you think socialism is evil. If you're in Europe, you're perhaps a little bit more socialist, and that's a little bit more accepted. If you're in China, perhaps you're more communist. I don't know, because those are only three options that we have at this moment in time: capitalism, communism, and socialism. Well, the principle of sharing transcends all that. It's beyond isms. Now, let's take a look historically and see if there's any factual evidence to the principle of sharing creating peace, because there is. If you look at what happened after World War II, okay, there was a man named George C. Marshall. He was the Secretary of State for the United States. He had this ingenious plan to help Europe because they saw that if they didn't help Europe right after World War II, a whole other war could flare up. And then it would be even worse because the United States had developed the atomic bomb. So if the United States had developed the atomic bomb, what's to keep somebody else from doing the same thing, right? And then it would have been really bad. Or because of the social unrest and so forth, it might have created anarchy in Europe and then lead them down the path to another dark age, which would have been bad for everybody. So what the powers that be did here in the United States is they came up and they followed the Marshall Plan, which is kind of a blueprint for how the principle of sharing will work globally. And the evidence is there that it does create peace. So they took the excesses in the United States that were sitting there doing nothing or going bad and just shipped it overseas to Europe for them to use, to help rebuild their roads, their infrastructure, their buildings, of course. And it did just that. It got the European people back on their feet. They were able to then create excesses of themselves, which they then, not long after that, paid back what they initially took, which created an economic boom in the United States. Evidence of that, right? So historically, that's what happened with the principle of sharing initially. And it solved the problem of rebuilding Europe rather rapidly. Now, over the last 70 years, this is key. This is what I want you to take away from these videos more than anything, okay, is the United States trust Western European nations, and the Western European nations trust the United States better than they trust any other nations on the planet. So the principle of sharing, historically, there's historical evidence that it does create goodwill amongst the nations, a peace amongst the nations. Maybe not perfect, but we haven't gone to war with any European nation since then, have we? But prior to that, we did, right? So it does create peace. Now, why is peace important? Well, the first reason is quite evident, that we have the technology now to destroy the world many times over. It's not just one or two atomic bombs in the world like it was right after World War II. We got a lot more, and a lot more nations have atomic weapons than ever before. So the longer we go on, the more we jeopardize our future, and the more there's a possibility that one nation could go to war nuclearly against another one, and so forth, which would be quite bad. Now, the other reason is maybe not quite as obvious. Let's look at the environment, right? Well, is it possible for us to solve the environmental problem when just a handful of nations are actually the ones doing something about it and the other ones aren't? No, right? So if Canada is putting all their effort into solving the environment, right, and the United States doesn't do anything about it, even though the United States is right next to Canada, not much is going to get done. Or even if the United States took it upon itself to be the leader in the world in climate change and helping that whole thing, well, if China doesn't do anything about it, then what good is it going to do, right? So the reason why these nations aren't helping each other out is because they don't trust one another. So that's why peace is so important to our future. And that's the reason why the principle of sharing is so important. So it's already proven that it works. And what's been proven not to work is the way that we've been doing it all along. So, try something different. Why not? And if it doesn't work, go right back to what we were doing, I guess. Now, before I get too long-winded, I do want to invite anybody that has questions to ask questions. It helps keep the conversation going. And we have a couple questions to cover in this video. And again, I want to say this. I said it last year. I'll say it again. All of you who have asked questions over this last year, I cannot thank you enough. And you know who you are. I don't want to list it all out because it will take forever, because there's so many people contributed this year, much more than last year. It's inspiring, but it's also, for those of us who have been asking questions and inquiring more and listening to the answers and so forth, it's helping all of us, myself included, know more about this information. And I can't thank you enough. And if you're somebody who perhaps isn't somebody that comments on YouTube channels, I know I'm like that. When I listen to the YouTube videos that I listen to, I don't necessarily comment right away on it or ask questions. I just kind of listen and move on with my day. I want to thank you as well. But anyway, and I look forward to more questions and comments in the future. So I appreciate it very much. Even those people who I don't agree with, and they don't agree with me, I thank you from the bottom of my heart as well, and wish you nothing but the best for 2021. All right, now, the first question comes from Regina Foster. My name is Regina Foster in Dallas, Texas, and want to know if you are involved with the Transmission Meditation Groups and or Share International. Thank you, Regina. I was very much involved in transmission meditation, and I was very much involved with the Share International groups here in Atlanta and nationally for years. I stepped away from the Share International groups for my own reasons. I stopped doing transmission meditation more of a job and a family thing because it was so difficult over the last 10 years for me to drive there and so forth. I know I'm making an excuse. I want to get back into it, but as of right now, I'm not doing transmission meditation that much, and I'm barely involved with the Share International groups. But we all share a similar commitment to getting this information out there. So that's why I put a link to the Share International group in every one of the description of every one of my videos. It is hands down the best website to go to get information about Maitreya, because you're listening to it, of course, from Benjamin Creme. Now, Regina, I know you already know this, of course, but there are people who perhaps don't. So that's why I'm saying it. So I'm not trying to insult your intelligence personally. Now, you commented on a video I put up on 12/8/20. Did you listen to a video I did with Betsy Whitfield? Perhaps you know Betsy, being from Dallas. She's very much involved in the Share International and transmission meditation groups in Dallas. Perhaps you do, perhaps you don't. I don't know. But if you don't know who she is, I definitely recommend looking her up, because she's very much of the right person to talk to in your area. But if you already knew her, then you already knew her. But anyway, yes. Does that answer your question? All right, so the next question comes from Henrique dos Santos. All right. Hey, mate. Just came across to your channel. Really like your content. I've been researching about Maitreya for a while now, but there's something I can't find out, and maybe you could share it with me/us if possible, because you do contact Maitreya in a way, probably through meditation, I think. My question is, could you share what's your method to do that, to contact Maitreya? I've been feeling really drawn to it. Would be really helpful, some information about that. Thank you once again. And thank you, Enrique, for your kind words. Couple things. Getting back to the link about Share International. If you go to the description of these videos, okay, perhaps you've already seen, if you've already been doing research on Maitreya, I'm sure you've already been to the Share International website, but this is for other people too, is click on that link, go to their website. On the left is a bunch of pages, right? There is the Hand of Maitreya link in there, I think, and just click on that. It will take you to a page talking about the Hand of Maitreya. Now, this is a miracle that's happened over the last few years, where Maitreya put it looks like the Shroud of Turin, but he put his handprint on a mirror in Barcelona, Spain. Now, you don't have to travel to Barcelona, Spain to experience the benefits of the miracle. All you have to do is look at the picture of a Hand of Maitreya. And according to Maitreya himself, this is the closest he can get to any one of us until he's out known for who he is. So I would recommend using the Hand of Maitreya to invoke his help, to create a mind-to-mind contact with him. Now, he's not going to give you messages like he did through Benjamin Creme. And of course, I know you're not saying this, but just so there's no misunderstanding amongst other people, I am not claiming to have any kind of messages coming from Maitreya. So let's be clear about that. Now, the other thing I want to say is I think it has to do with faith as well. Okay, so even Sai Baba, perhaps you know who Sai Baba is. He's passed away now, but he's still here. But he even said that to invoke his help or Jesus' help or Maitreya's help, you have to have faith, okay? Because it's like a light switch, that if you don't have any faith in who they are or what they are, then they can't really help you, as much as they maybe could if you did, right? So faith is key. And there's been evidence in the New Testament about the need for faith. Anything from Jesus saying, if you have faith as big as a mustard seed, you can tell that mountain to move and it will move. Now, that, of course, was just a symbol, right, Enrique? I mean, it's not something that you could go to Mount Everest if you had faith in Jesus as big as a mustard seed and ask it to move 20 feet, and it does, right? So just as if you ask Mount Everest to move 20 feet and it doesn't mean you don't have faith. It's just a symbol, right? It was just a way of explaining what he was talking about. Those seemingly insurmountable obstacles in our life, like Mount Everest or a mountain, if you have faith as big as a mustard seed, well, sure as a world, you can ask it to move, right? And it'll move for you, right? Now, There's other instances in the Bible, like one of my favorites was the Roman centurion who went to Jesus and asked Jesus to cure his servant who was dying. And Jesus said, well, I can come. He goes, no. All you have to do is just tell me you did it, and that's good enough for me. Right? And here was a guy who wasn't a quote-unquote Christian follower, but yet he was following the precepts of Christ, right? And Jesus, what did Jesus say to him? He said, it's because of your faith that your servant is cured. And he goes, how little faith, even for his followers, this Roman, who was despised by most early Christians and the Jews at that time, had more faith than he did. And he said, because of your faith, he's cured, right? So faith is key, but it's not faith in belief. This is where we really need to kind of really dive into it. It's faith in the understanding of yourself as a soul. Having a heartfelt response or intuitive response to who and what Maitreya is or Jesus is key, not a belief. Most people's ideal of faith really is just from what they were told from the early on in their life, and they just kind of formed their whole life based on that. You know what I'm saying? And there's not any real truth to that. It's just belief. And beliefs change. You know, I mean, they change for every one of us to some degree, you know, some more than others, right? But true faith doesn't change. It's timeless. And every one of us can have that faith. And when you have that faith, that's what creates the joy in your life, which is we're going to talk about this when I read Benjamin Creme's Master's article at the end of this video. That's why it's important. I hope everyone listens to the end of this video because it's amazing. I mean, all his messages were amazing, but this one, especially being New Year's Eve, just has a different dimension to it. So anyway, but faith is key. So even the hand of Maitreya, you know, as close as he can get to you, he can get closer to you if you have faith, right? You don't have to believe everything that that I'm saying about who Maitreya is, but if you have some faith in it, it will make it easier for him to help you. So perhaps the contact that I have with him, it's easier for him to help me. It's easier for him to from time to time appear to me as a familiar to help me and so forth, is because I have faith in this information. I have faith in his, but I also want for the world what he's advocating in the world 100%. That's all I want. So if you ask Maitreya for help, right, especially if it's help in helping others, you'll see that help rather rapidly. If you ask him to appear in your bedroom right now by looking at the hand of Maitreya, it's probably not going to happen, right? If you ask for $1 billion because you want to blow it on cocaine and prostitutes, probably not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? But if you are really in dire straits and you really needed help, now there's an instance, this is an example, is there's a woman who Benjamin Creme spoke about, and she asked the hand of Maitreya for something specific, and he always said to be very specific and when asking for help, okay, from Maitreya. She was very specific, she asked for help. She needed, I think, $10,000 or something like this. Well, it wasn't like Maitreya just dropped it off at her doorstep, but her father, she and her father were talking like a week later, and he goes, is there anything you need? Do you need my help with anything? And she goes, well, in fact, I need $10,000. He goes, done. So, and how she was blown away by that, how quick it was, right? So, but faith, you have to have faith on some level, even as big as a mustard seed, right? And then it makes it easier for those divine representatives, those angels, if you want to refer to them as that. If it's Jesus, it's fine too. If it's Maitreya, if it's the Buddha, if it's Sai Baba, it doesn't matter. It's easier for them to help you. It's easier for them to, perhaps make contact with you if you have faith, right? So does that answer your question? And if it doesn't answer the question the way that you were thinking or wanting or whatever, Henrique, just circle back around and ask it again. All right, now, the next few comments that came up, I'm leaving them up there for people to read. Don't really need to get into it too much. Now, the one comment I want to talk about, Christians exposing the New World Order. I want to thank you again for commenting. How do I say this? In terms of Alice Bailey, it's all perception. Okay, so when you read Alice Bailey, you're reading it from a fundamentalist Christian perspective. Okay, I'm not. So I don't read what you're reading. Now, you might say that it's because of your faith that you can see this and I can't and I'm deceived, but I don't see it like that either. It's just, but we all see life the way that we see life. So, for instance, I remember this lesson that this teacher taught us in elementary school, and it's stuck with me ever since, is we're all sitting there in class, and she was trying to talk about perceptions and the way you see things, and it didn't make much sense until she did this thing. But she goes, all right, so everyone, I want you to, for the next minute, I want you to try to remember everything in the room. Just look around the room and try to remember everything that's red. And I remember I did it, and she goes, now close your eyes. And I was thinking, oh, I got the list. I got it. Oof, I'm going to be good at this. I'm going to get it. And then she threw us a curveball, and she goes, now, I want you to list everything that was blue. I was like, what? Right? Well, because we were all looking for red, we remembered everything that was red. We weren't looking for blue. So I already know in my heart, I can already tell you, you're not going to believe me, Christians exposing the New World Order, and that's fine, right? But there is no way that Alice Bailey, the author Alice Bailey, was talking about Satan worship or worshiping Satan or anything like that. None of that. Now, it's all perception, and I know you don't want to hear this from me, but it's what you're seeing is what you're seeing, and I can't convince you otherwise. So I'm not, right? But I know she wasn't talking about that. She was talking about something totally different, and so, but yet that's what people who are extremely religious get when they read that. So it is what it is. In terms of, and this kind of leads me to the comment you made about William Cooper, right? In terms of, you said, well, I was downplaying him as what did you say? You had mentioned Bill Cooper before and played him down as a conspiracy theorist for talking about the New World Order when it's the main theme of the Alice Bailey book. Okay, well, whatever. I wasn't downplaying William Cooper. I actually respect William Cooper in two ways. One, I respected him because he believed what he believed and he was doing something about it, and he wanted to help people. He was trying to help people in his own way. Now, I do think it ties into what Paul said. Even Satan can disguise himself as an angel of light. So he was trying to help people, but I think he was doing more harm than good. So I feel bad for him in that way. But the other reason why I respect him is because when he found out that information was incorrect, even though he had been the one that was promoting that same information, when he found out that it was false, he was man enough to admit that he was wrong. And that takes a lot, especially somebody who's as dogmatic as he was. For him to do that, it takes a courage and a bravery that most people don't have. So I respect him immensely for that. Now, what I was talking about, it kind of ties into perceptions, and it ties into beliefs, and it ties into faith, and it ties into the article that I want to read from Benjamin Creme's master entitled The Joy of Living, okay? And hopefully you hear this, but maybe you won't. I don't know. Is that the thing that really broke my heart about William Cooper was he didn't seem like there was any joy in his life. I mean, how could he? I mean, all he was seeing all the time were these conspiracy theories, these conspiracies. He couldn't relate to the outside world without seeing that. And there was so much fear in what he was seeing that's what he was seeing was nothing but fear. And it's sad. It's sad that somebody lives their whole life and now he's dead, right? And all the destruction that he did in his life because of it. And it's sad. Now, your beliefs, if they, and are different than mine, but if your beliefs bring you joy and happiness and fulfillment in your life, then by all means believe it, right? If they don't, then you might want to change your beliefs. You don't have to believe what I believe, but you might want to change your beliefs to something that are more joyful. I don't know. But that's just my 2 cents on it. But if you're reading things from Alice Bailey about Satan worship or whatever, you're misinterpreting what she's saying, first of all. But those are just your perceptions. But I'd be willing to bet you that you see that in a lot of other things too that isn't really going on, but you're seeing it and you're thinking that that's what's going on. When I was a kid and I was scared of the dark, I was afraid that there was monsters under my bed. And my parents had to look under my bed every night before I could actually go to sleep. And then I realized that there was no truth to that. And I really saw life that there was no truth to that. And then I didn't need my parents to look underneath my bed, now did I? So it's the same thing. It's just how you're looking at life. And I remember how free I felt after I realized that there was no truth to there's this monster under my bed that was going to eat me if I fell asleep. There's no truth to it. Right? So it's like, but it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing, but just on a higher level because you're an adult, right? But we all have fears, but it's Maitreya, the joy that Maitreya is going to, when you start to really see Maitreya on TV and recognize him, every one of us will be taken back by his joy, whether we admit it or not. And his joy is true joy. It's joy free from fear, but it's also joy in knowing the truth that we are all one. One. There is no separation between Maitreya and you, Jesus and you, God and you. So there is no truth to what the teachings of the church, not of Christ, but of the church, that God is separate from you, and they're the intermediary, and you have to go through them to get to that. Right? There is no truth to that. And if you read the Bible, and I know you do, but if you read it from the eyes that we are one, you will see what Maitreya is talking about. But there's absolutely no truth that Alice Bailey was talking about Satan worship. None. But you believe what you want to believe, but, it's okay. Now, I want to, first of all, thank you for that. But I want to lead that into the master's article that I want to read. It's you can read it any day of the year, but it does have, I think, added meaning to the fact that we're about to enter a new year. We're about to leave behind one of the most trying, most difficult years of all our lives in the hope of something better. And anyway, I want to read it, and I hope you listen to it all the way through. And at the end, I won't say anything. I'll just let it go to the end of the video, but Happy New Year, everybody. And really Happy New Year. And anyway, the joy of living. Each winter, the sun sets earlier and earlier until, on the shortest day, we see it, if at all, for but a few brief hours. Such is the reality of our planetary life. However, experience has taught us that, without fail, the days will gradually lengthen, and the blossom of spring and the warmth of summer will return once more, bringing us renewed hope and joy in living. When one considers this, when one sees how inevitable is change, one sees also how unnecessary is despair. Despair strikes at the heart of truth, for the truth is that nothing remains the same forever, not even the darkest seeming fate. Since this is so, what is to be gained by fruitless despair? Better it is by far, when the blows of karma seem difficult to bear, to await calmly the appointed hour of change, in the sure knowledge that it will come. True joy in living can be ours only when we learn to accept with equanimity the blows and the gifts of life. Such a one is a disciple. Such a one knows that not in the universe stands still. All is in movement, constantly changing and assuming new forms. Consider then how vain it is to expect that the present to persist. This insight engenders freedom. From that freedom spontaneously arises joy. Joy must be understood to be the natural state underlying happiness and sorrow alike. When uncovered, it radiates its light, the light of the soul, all around, and makes manifest the love which is the nature of God. Love and joy coexist in the heart which is pure, unclouded by fear, hate, or the anguish of despair. Remove fear from your heart and know joy. Release yourselves from hate and know the meaning of love. Cast from your dark despair and stand in your true light. Thus can you enter the kingdom of souls and become a savior of the world. Many approach the future with fear, knowing little of the glory which awaits them. From them naught beckons but bleak destruction. Show them that the future for man will be wonderful to behold, holding as it does the promise of revealed. Trust is not easily engendered, but the light of joy will prove the best ambassador. Teach the young to express the joy which is their birthright, and place not upon tender hearts the weight of guilt and fear. Thus will it be born a generation of joyous servers of the race. Take us, your elder brothers, as your example. The radiance of our joy is our hallmark. Emulate us and spread abroad joy's light. Conquer fear and uphold the hope of others. Fear and joy are equally infectious. Demonstrate love and joy and close firmly forever the door upon despair. Do this, and you will aid mankind more than you could know. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.